Today we'll be discussing how charter government versus the current government is a better system in terms of the 7-person council compared to the 3-person Board of Commissioners. Under the basic form of county government created by the state, we have 3 commissioners who serve as both an executive and legislative function of government. Additionally, there are 8 executive specialist officials in the county, as well as 6 judges serving as the judicial branch of government. This is the organizational chart taken from the county's website. We'll take a moment to zoom in for a quick quibble. One of the common themes we hear from the county government in favor of the status quo is that things are running quite well. Recently, we authorized $50,000 to upgrade the website. If you zoom in on this chart, which is one of the main pages of the website, you will see quite a few very basic errors. These are not uncommon. It's also not a very visually friendly chart, so we'll use our own, which did not cost any money, let alone $50,000. This is the current form of government. 3 commissioners who serve as the executive and legislative branch, the judiciary composed of 6 judges, and 8 specialist officials who serve as an executive branch. Currently, there are 17 elected officials in Ashtabula County. Under the charter, this shifts to a 7-district council that continues to serve as an executive and legislative branch. The clerk of courts becomes an appointed position based on the recommendations of the judges to the council who appoints the clerk of courts. The recorder and treasurer are merged into the position of the finance director, who is appointed by the council. Currently, the prosecutor serves as both the civil legal advisor to the county government and in the role of prosecuting crimes. The law director position is created as an appointed position by the council to handle the civil, not criminal, aspects of the prosecutor's position, allowing the prosecutor to focus on prosecuting crime. This leaves the auditor, the coroner, the engineer, the sheriff, and the prosecutor as the remaining specialist executive officials elected in the county. With 7 council members, 6 judges, and 5 executive specialist officers, the county then has 18 elected officials under the charter. Let's take a moment to review those 5 elected officials and why they are remaining as elected and the others are not. Some positions serve as a check or balance on the county council or judiciary, such as the auditor or engineer, who may often have budget debates in terms of the auditor either investigating the books or the engineer's budget in terms of repairing the county roads that may bring them into conflict with the council. Other positions are involved in law enforcement or have investigative powers and duties, such as the auditor, the coroner, the sheriff, and the prosecutor. In addition to the charter's desire not to interfere with law enforcement or judicial matters, there is always a concern that council members may be subject to criminal prosecution or investigation, in which case it is not in our advantage to have the people who may be investigating them be their direct employees, answerable to them, hired by them, or able to be fired by them. We'll just take a moment again to bring up the structure of the government under the county charter. As you can see, you have the executive and legislative combination of the district council, the judiciary, which is unchanged, and the remaining elected 5 officials of a specialist variety who serve as either a check or a balance on the government and or serve in some sort of an investigative or law enforcement role. Now let's move on to a direct comparison of the council versus the commissioners. The first major difference is that the district council is elected by district, whereas the commissioners are elected at large. This means that each community is able to elect a representative to see to their needs, in the same fashion that we elect the U.S. Congress, the Ohio House of Representatives, the Ohio Senate, and how most states and democratic nations elect their representatives. The second major difference is that under the Charter, the council will be elected in non-partisan races, as will all other county-level positions in Ashtabula. With non-partisan district representation, your councilperson will serve your community, not a political party. The third difference is that the 7 district council will be elected as part-time representatives, as compared to currently, where many people are under the false impression that all commissioners are full-time. According to the Ohio Revised Code, commissioners are in fact part-time officials, although their salary would indicate otherwise. The fourth and final major difference is that under the Charter, the Council, as well as the 5 remaining executive elected positions, will be term limited. They will not be able to serve more than 3 4-year terms in a row. It is our belief that these differences will help to create a diverse council interested in representing its community, not a political party, and that by being part-time and term limited, they will not have a chance to become career politicians or become entrenched in the bureaucracy. Let's take a moment to look at the districts themselves. Under the Charter, the county will be divided into 7 equal population districts, each numbering roughly 14,500 citizens. A common concern and false claim about the Charter is that these districts are gerrymandered or could become gerrymandered. Gerrymandering is not applicable to non-partisan elections. Thus, we are easily able to produce compact and reasonable districts, which are likely to remain so based on future redistricting, which takes place every 10 years with the census. To those who would claim that the Ashtabula districts are gerrymandered, we would use these examples for comparison. This is North Carolina's 12th congressional district compared to Ashtabula's districts. Which of these looks gerrymandered? Here is Illinois' 17th congressional district. As before, the green shaded area is the congressional district. Here is Pennsylvania's 12th congressional district. Once again, there is no comparison. Our last example, Illinois' 4th congressional district. Once again, by having non-partisan elections, we are able to avoid the threat of gerrymandering of our districts, allowing our districts to be based on community integrity, not political party maneuvering. To close out, there are some things which have come up as sources of common confusion that the opposition has seized on in order to distort the truth and in order to cast unfair doubts upon the Charter. One of the most common of these is the claim that currently we each vote for 3 commissioners, and of the Charter we would only vote for 1, who has 1/7 of the power. People wonder, isn't this taking away some of my voting power? The answer is no. You have exactly the same voting power in district representation as you have in at-large representation. The opposition, unable to challenge us on concepts such as taxes or nonpartisan elections, seeks to play on some voters' infamiliarity with math in order to trick them into believing that they lose voting power. For this reason, we will go over a mathematical example of this. First, it is important to recognize that whether one is using 3 at-large commissioners or 3 district commissioners, there is no change. If you are using 7 at-large commissioners or 7 district council, there is no change. if you had a simple single county executive and no council or commissioners, or if you had 1,000 council members, your vote share remains exactly the same. To illustrate this, let us imagine a desert island with 21 people who have been abandoned there. These castaways decide to form a democratic government. The first and most simplistic form would be for each of them to cast a vote for a single at-large representative, perhaps a village mayor. Each has 1/21th of the vote, which works out to be 4.8% of the voting power. As an alternative, they may choose to appoint 3 people at large to serve as their equivalent to the Board of Commissioners. Each of those commissioners controls 1/3 of the power of the government. Each citizen is able to cast 3 votes. There are 21 citizens. 1/3 times 3/21 equals 1/21, or 4.8%, the same voting power as before. Another option available to them would be to elect 7 at-large representatives. These 7 people would each control 1/7 of the government's power. Each citizen would cast 7 total votes, out of 21 for each race. 1/7 times 7/21 is 1/21, or 4.8% of the voting power. Another option which might come into play, if the people settled throughout the island into 3 rough districts, would be to have each of 7 people voting for 1 representative. Each of those 3 representatives would have 1/3 of the government's power. Each voter would have 1/7 of the say for who those representatives were. 1/3 times 1/7 equals 1/21, or again 4.8%. Our last example is an example of 7 districts. In this case, there are 3 people in each district. Each of their representatives has 1/7 of the power of the government. Each person cast 1 out of 3 possible votes. 1/7 times 1/3 equals 1/21, again 4.8%. The opposition, who are certainly aware of the fairness of district representation, which is used throughout the country and throughout the democratic world, are merely attempting to play on a perceived unfamiliarity of most voters with multiplying fractions, especially when those numbers are much larger than 21, in the case of this county, slightly over 100,000 people, or 14,500 per district. In all cases, voting power of the individual citizen remains the same. The next source of common confusion is that if the council appoints the treasurer and recorder, which are merged in the finance director's position, and the clerk of courts, all of which are currently elected, isn't that taking away some of our voting power? The answer, as before, is no. You have exactly the same voting power. This pie chart indicates currently the split of power amongst the 17 elected officials in this county. We vote for all of these positions. This is the governmental county power share under the charter. In this case, the pie remains the same size. The council's share of it increases. We continue to elect all of these positions. The pie does not change in size. Additionally, voting power is actually increased to the citizens, as they are able to vote on their taxes, as well as have recall elections on any of these officials who should turn out to be unfit for office, and they have the ability to referendum any decision by the government which they feel was not in their best interests. Another common confusion is that the council appoints a county administrator who has a very great deal of power that people do not get to vote for, and people wonder why not. This is another claim by the opposition based on a false premise which they know is false. The council appoints a county administrator. However, every county in Ohio already has a county administrator. The council simply takes over the job of hiring and firing the administrator, just as they take over the job of the Board of Commissioners. There is no substantive change to that position. A follow-up to this is the claim that the county administrator appoints the finance director, law director, or clerk of courts. Those positions are very clearly laid out as appointed by the council and report strictly to the council. Another claim is that the charter expands government power. Currently, we have limited government, and people wonder if this is true. The answer is yes, this is absolutely true. However, this is also based on a flawed premise. The county government's power is expanded by taking power currently in the hands of the state. It is the state that designs and creates our county structure of government. Under the charter, that power is shifted from the state government to the county government. There is no effect in terms of expansion into voters' powers. It is merely a shift from the state to the county. Claiming that the charter expands governmental powers would be the equivalent of saying that if one switched power from the federal to state level, that would represent an expansion of government powers, when in fact it would merely be a transfer of existing powers from the federal government to the state government, which is not what most people have in mind when they speak of limited or expanding government. This concludes our comparison of the Charter Council government to the current state-designed commissioner form of government. We thank you for listening, and if you are interested in finding out more, please visit our website, www.newashtabula.com. Thanks again. And please vote yes on Issue 1.